In 1891, inside a narrow portrait studio on the edge of Savannah, a black family sat perfectly still for a photograph. 7 people, Sunday clothes, hands folded, faces held in that careful, solemn way old photographs always seem to demand. At first, there was nothing strange about it, just a family paying for the right to be remembered in a country that had spent generations making people like them disappear. But near the bottom of the frame, beside his mother's skirt, stood a little boy no one had studied closely for more than a century. He was maybe 6 years old. His chin was lifted slightly. His left hand was curled around the leg of the chair, and in his right eye, almost invisible beneath the brown wash of the photograph, was a pale crescent of color. Not a reflection, not damage to the print, not a trick of age. A crescent of blue-gray inside a black child's eye. When a genetic historian finally enlarged that photograph on a digital monitor, the room went quiet. Because that tiny mark was not just a detail, it was a map. A map written in living tissue, carried through slavery, forced names, missing records, burned ledgers, and 4 generations of women who had been told only one thing: keep the picture. It matters. This is the story of the eye that kept a family's origin alive long after history tried to bury it. Dr. Evelyn Shaw had spent almost 20 years rebuilding family lines that official documents had broken. Her office at Spelman College did not look like a normal academic office. There were no awards on the wall, no framed diplomas in the center, no polished photographs of herself shaking hands with donors. Instead, the room was covered with strangers: a laundress from Mobile, a brickmaker from Macon, a child photographed barefoot beside a mule, a wedding portrait with the groom's name scraped off the back. Every frame was a case. Every case was a person history had tried to turn into a blank space. On the morning Celia Grant came in, the rain had been falling hard enough to blur the campus windows. Celia was 57, quiet, neatly dressed, and carrying a brown portfolio under her coat as if it were alive. She did not sit down right away. She placed the portfolio on Evelyn's desk, kept both hands on it, and said, "My mother told me never to throw this away." Evelyn had heard versions of that sentence before. Old families often had objects like that: a Bible with births written in the back, a brooch no one wore, a deed no one understood, a photograph that survived every move, every death, every house fire, every cousin who said nobody needed that old thing anymore. But Celia's voice carried a fear Evelyn recognized: the fear of being the last person holding a clue. Evelyn opened the portfolio slowly. Inside was a cabinet card, thick, browned at the corners, about 8 by 10 inches. The photograph had been mounted on heavy board, the kind portrait studios used in the late 19th century. The top edge had warped slightly. The back had a pale rectangle where a studio stamp had once been removed. Not faded, removed. On the front, written in pencil so light it almost disappeared, were 4 numbers: 1891. No names, no city, no photographer, no explanation. Just a black family in their best clothing, posed against a painted backdrop of a parlor window and a curtain that had never belonged to any real room. Evelyn leaned closer. The father stood on the left, tall and narrow, in a dark coat that looked a little too large in the shoulders. A woman sat in the center with a baby asleep across her lap. Two girls stood behind her. Two older boys stood stiffly near the painted curtain. And at the very bottom of the frame, beside the woman's chair, stood the youngest boy. Something in his face made Evelyn pause. Not fear, not sadness, not even expression. It was the eye. Evelyn did not reach for the magnifying glass first. She had learned that old paper lies differently under glass than it does under light. She scanned the photograph at high resolution. Then she pulled it onto her monitor and adjusted only what a historian is allowed to adjust: exposure, contrast, and focus. No alteration, no invention. Just enough light to let the original speak. The family appeared sharper: the father's collar, the mother's folded sleeve, the cracks in the studio floor, the baby's blurred hand. Then Evelyn zoomed in on the little boy. His left eye was dark. His right eye was not. It had a pale blue gray crescent near the lower iris, a wedge of missing pigment so clean it looked almost painted onto him by a careful hand. Evelyn sat back. Celia leaned forward from across the desk. "What is it?" Evelyn did not answer immediately. She moved the image higher on the screen and looked again. The crescent was real. Not glare, not paper damage, not a scratch. Sectoral heterochromia. A patch of one iris, a different color from the rest. Celia whispered, "Is that rare?" "It can be," Evelyn said. Then she looked at the mother in the center of the photograph. The mother's eyes were hard to read because her face had been angled downward and the light had fallen unevenly across one side. But at the edge of her hairline, under the dark scarf tied behind her head, Evelyn saw a thin streak of pale hair. Not gray with age. This woman was probably in her early 30s. The streak was white. Evelyn opened a medical reference file she kept for exactly this kind of case. Most genealogists search for names. Evelyn searched for anything that could behave like a name when the names were gone. Scars, missing fingers, unusual ears, birthmarks, hair patterns, eye color. The body sometimes kept its own archive. The condition she found was familiar: Waardenburg syndrome, a hereditary condition that can affect pigmentation in the eyes, hair, and skin. It can produce two different colored eyes, a white forelock, or a pale section inside one iris. Several genes can be involved, including MITF and PAX3, genes that help guide pigment-producing cells while a child is still forming. But the part that mattered most was not the name of the condition. It was how it traveled. Autosomal dominant. One parent can pass it on. One visible marker can point backward. And if it appears in a family line, it can become a breadcrumb that survives when paper records do not. Evelyn looked from the boy's pale eye to the mother's white streak. Then she looked at Celia. "This did not begin with him," she said. Celia's hands tightened around the strap of her purse. What does that mean? It means someone before him had it. Maybe his mother, maybe her mother, maybe someone farther back. Evelyn turned the screen slightly so Celia could see both faces at once. The photograph is not just showing your family, she said. It may be showing us how to find them. The first problem was that the photograph had been made difficult on purpose. No studio mark, no names, a date, but nothing else. Someone had preserved the picture carefully, but someone else had stripped away the most useful clue. That bothered Evelyn. Families lose names by accident. Photographs lose paper corners by age. But a studio stamp scraped clean from the back of a cabinet card is an act, a decision. Evelyn began with what the photograph itself could prove. The clothing matched the early 1890s. The mounting board was common in professional Southern studios. The painted parlor backdrop, with its fake curtain and fake window, had been used by several urban studios between 1888 and 1895. But the floor mattered more. At the bottom edge of the photograph, near the boy's shoes, was a thin strip of the real studio floor. Not painted, not staged. A row of narrow heart pine planks, darkened by use, cut at an angle. Evelyn had seen that floor before, not in person, in a digitized collection of Savannah studio portraits. A photographer named Julius Brenner had used a similar parlor backdrop and had the same diagonal plank floor visible in several surviving portraits from the 1890s. He had worked near West Broad Street, not far from the neighborhood where many black families built new lives after emancipation. It was not proof, but it was a door. Evelyn searched city directories for Brenner's studio. Then she searched surviving tax records for black households near that district around 1891. Nothing connected cleanly. Then she searched the Freedmen's bank records. The Freedmen Savings and Trust Company had been created after the Civil War. It was supposed to help formerly enslaved people build financial security. It failed disastrously in 1874, taking the savings of thousands of black depositors with it. But before it collapsed, it recorded something priceless: names, relatives, ages, birthplaces, descriptions, former enslavers, sometimes entire family maps in a single line. Evelyn entered every combination she could build from the photograph. A woman in her 30s, Savannah, possible husband, 5 or 6 children, distinctive hair, distinctive eye. For 2 hours, nothing. Then, in a branch record from 1872, she found a depositor named Lottie Reed, age 23, born near Darien, Georgia, mother deceased, husband, Thomas Reed, carpenter, child, Ruth, age 2. Physical note: white streak at front hair. Evelyn stopped moving. White streak at front hair. That was not enough by itself, but the husband's occupation mattered. The man in the photograph had long carpenter's hands. The cuffs of his coat were worn in a way that suggested tools, not field labor. And one of the older boys held his fingers stiffly, the same way apprentices sometimes did after planing boards all day. Evelyn pulled every record she could find for Thomas and Lottie Reed. In the 1880 census, she found them in Savannah. Thomas Reed, carpenter. Lottie Reed, wife. Children: Ruth, Isaiah, Abram, Martha, Samuel, and a younger son whose name had been written so poorly it could have been Eli, Elias, or Ellis. Age 6 in 1891. The little boy in the photograph. Celia covered her mouth. Evelyn watched the name settle over her, not as information, as weight. My grandmother's grandmother was called Ruth, Celia said. Evelyn nodded once. Now they had a family. But the eye had opened a larger question. Where did the marker come from before Lottie? The bank record said Lottie had been born near Darien, Georgia, around 1849. That meant she had been born into slavery. It listed her mother as deceased, with no last name. Only one word. Alma. Not Emma. Not Anna. Alma. A name that did not sit comfortably in the English records around it. Evelyn copied it into her notebook. Alma. Then she wrote beside it, "Find the mother." The right records were worse than she expected. Darien had burned more than once. Plantation papers had been moved, sold, inherited, scattered, and destroyed. Some families had preserved every receipt for cotton, but not one name for the people who picked it. Evelyn spent 3 days inside fragments. A tax list, a bill of sale, a court petition, a property inventory, a physician's account book from 1856. That account book gave her the second breadcrumb. It belonged to a doctor who had treated enslaved people on plantations along the lower Altamaha River. The entries were cold, brief, and mostly financial. They named the enslaver, not the patient, unless the patient had some feature that made billing easier. On one page, in a list of 6 visits charged to a rice planter, Evelyn saw the words Amma, woman, left eye pale, fever. She read it again. Amma, woman, left eye pale. Not Lottie, her mother. The trait had moved back 1 generation. Evelyn photographed the page with permission, then sat very still at the reading table. There are moments in archival work when a person stops being an entry. A name becomes a breathing person. A line becomes a room. A ledger becomes a witness. Alma had been ill in 1856. A doctor had reduced her to a bill. But his careless note had preserved the one thing the enslaver did not understand he was preserving: her body's map. The next record came from the coast. A domestic slave manifest dated March 1851 listed enslaved people transported from Charleston to a Georgia port. Among them was a woman in her early 20s named Alma, no surname, described as one light eye. The listed destination was a rice plantation near the Altamaha. The manifest did not say where she had been born. It did not say who her parents were. It did not say what language she spoke, what name she used before Alma, or whether Alma was the name she was born with. It said only enough to move her legally as property. Name, age, sex, condition, owner, mark. One light eye. That was the phrase that had crossed the water of time. Evelyn called Celia that evening. "I found Lottie's mother," she said. Celia did not speak for several seconds. Then she asked, "Was she from Georgia?" Evelyn looked down at the manifest. "I don't think so," she said. "I think Georgia is where the records start, not where she started." Celia agreed to DNA testing 2 days later. Not the casual kind with cheerful pie charts and distant cousins popping up on a screen. Evelyn referred her to Dr. Marcus Bell, a population geneticist who worked with maternal line reconstruction in African American families where the paper trail had been violently cut. The test focused on mitochondrial DNA, the kind passed from mother to child through the maternal line, mother to daughter, daughter to daughter, a quiet line, often ignored by legal systems that cared more about ownership than motherhood. If Celia descended through Ruth, and Ruth descended from Lottie, and Lottie descended from Amma, then Celia might still carry a molecular echo of the woman listed on that 1851 manifest. The lab took 16 days. During that time, Evelyn kept searching. She found nothing for a week. Then she returned to the scraped studio stamp. The missing rectangle on the back of the photograph had always bothered her. Most families did not scrape away studio marks unless the mark revealed something they wanted hidden. But what if it had not been removed to hide the photographer? What if it had been removed because something had been written over it? Evelyn used raking light, then infrared imaging through a conservation lab. Under the erase patch, the camera revealed several faint impressions left by pencil pressure. Not enough for a sentence, but enough for 3 words. For Lottie's people. Not family, people. The phrase changed the temperature of the photograph. This had not simply been a portrait passed down because it was old. It had been marked as belonging to a group larger than the 7 faces inside it. For Lottie's people. As if someone knew the picture was evidence. As if someone understood that someday the faces might need to testify. The DNA results arrived the next morning. Dr. Bell called Evelyn before sending the full report. His voice had the careful steadiness of a scientist trying not to sound shaken. The maternal haplogroup is L2A1, he said. That is broad, too broad by itself. Evelyn waited. But the matching cluster is not broad. The closest maternal matches in the database concentrate along the upper Guinea coast, Sierra Leone, coastal Liberia, and the old Rice Coast corridor. Evelyn wrote every word. And the pigmentation marker? We cannot prove it from mitochondrial DNA. Different system. But Celia has a known family variant and a pigmentation gene associated with Waardenburg expression. The variant is uncommon in the database. The closest comparative matches are from families with historical roots near the Mono River region. The Mono River, between what is now Sierra Leone and Liberia. A region tied deeply to rice cultivation, coastal trade, and the violent human trafficking networks that fed the Atlantic world. Evelyn closed her eyes. The documents had brought them to Georgia. The manifest had brought them to Charleston. The DNA was pointing toward the Rice Coast. But one piece was missing. A voice. Not a bill, not a manifest, not an official record. A voice. 3 weeks later, Evelyn found it in a missionary archive in Philadelphia. Not because she was searching for Amma, because she was searching for one light eye. The phrase appeared in an 1887 letter written by a black school teacher named Josephine Reed, who had collected recollections from older freedwomen in coastal Georgia. Most of the collection had been overlooked because it was filed under dialect material, a dismissive category that had hidden some of the most valuable testimony in plain sight. One page included a translated recollection from an elderly woman identified only as Mother Amma. Evelyn stared at the name. Then she read the paragraph beneath it. Mother Amma said she was born near a river where women grew rice in water fields. She said her mother's mother had one pale eye and that the children were told it was the river looking back. She said men came before dawn and the village dogs did not bark because the men brought people they knew. She said she was held near the coast, then put on a ship, then sold after another voyage inside America. And near the bottom of the page, Josephine had written one sentence in quotation marks. My child's child must know I did not begin here. Evelyn stood up from the archive table. She had to walk into the hallway. For almost a minute, she could not breathe properly. Not because the sentence solved everything. It did not. It did not give Amma's birth name. It did not name her village. It did not return what had been taken. But it did something records almost never did for enslaved ancestors. It let Amma object. It let her speak against the place where the paperwork began. My child's child must know I did not begin here. When Celia came back to Evelyn's office, the rain was falling again. Not as hard as the first day, just enough to make the windows dim and the old photograph look deeper in its cardboard frame. Evelyn laid the evidence out in order. The 1891 cabinet card from Savannah, the Freedmen's bank record naming Lottie Reed, white streak at front hair, the 1880 census tying Lottie to Thomas and the children, the physician's account book naming Amma, left eye pale, the 1851 manifest listing Amma, one light eye, the DNA report pointing to the Upper Guinea coast and the Mano River corridor, the teacher's 1887 recollection of Mother Amma. Each piece was incomplete. Together, they did what no single document could do. They formed a road. Celia listened without interrupting. She touched the photograph only once, with two fingers near the little boy's face. That's Ellis, she said. Evelyn nodded. Most likely. And his mother is Lottie. Yes. And Lottie's mother was Amma. Yes. Celia looked at the DNA report. And before Georgia? Evelyn pointed to the map she had placed beside the documents. A map of the Upper Guinea coast, the river systems, the rice-growing regions, the corridor between Sierra Leone and Liberia. We cannot claim a village, Evelyn said. Not honestly. But we can say the maternal line points back to this region. And the story Amma gave matches that world with unusual precision. Celia looked at the map for a long time. Then she looked back at the photograph. My mother told me the picture mattered, she said. She was right. No one knew why. Evelyn glanced at the little boy's pale crescent of eye on the enlarged print. Someone knew enough to keep it. Celia was quiet. Then she said, Amma knew. Evelyn did not answer. She did not need to. The whole room seemed to answer for her. The scraped stamp, the pencil marks, the bank record, the doctor's careless note, the manifest, the DNA, the testimony hidden in the mislabeled archive. Amma had been renamed, moved, sold, recorded as property, reduced to an age, a sex, a condition, and a mark. But she had also told someone, my child's child must know I did not begin here. And because a family kept one photograph, because a boy's eye caught light in a studio in 1891, because a mother's white streak hid under a scarf, because a descendant refused to throw away what she did not understand, the line did not end in silence. Celia lifted the cabinet card and held it the same way she had carried it in, close to her chest. Not like an old photograph anymore, like a recovered address. As she left Evelyn's office, the rain had begun to slow. Evelyn stayed behind, looking at the empty chair, the damp footprints near the door, and the enlarged image of Ellis Reed still glowing on her screen. A little black boy in a vanished studio. One dark eye. One eye holding a pale crescent of the place his great-grandmother had been taken from. For over a century, people thought the photograph had no names, but the body had kept what the paper lost. History can burn a ledger. It can scrape a stamp from cardboard. It can rename a woman until even her grandchildren are unsure what to call her. But it cannot make the body forget where the river began.